Let's forge ahead into the presentation. We're all here to talk about Site 24 tonight. Now, I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of why we're here and what we need to do tonight. There's two sets of laws that govern the cleanup program at Treasure Island, and Site 24 is no exception to that. The federal and the state. The Navy is the lead agency for the feds, and we operate our program under the guidelines of the Superfund Law, is what it's known as. It's also known, the formal acronym is CERCLA, and I may refer to that again tonight because it's awfully long to say Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act. Allow me that to say just CERCLA or Superfund Law, okay? It requires a cleanup of past waste sites, and it allows for the public to comment on the cleanup. The official public comment period, according to the law as it was written, is at the proposed plan stage. Now, I know many of you come to many Navy meetings, right, and there's many documents, but really, in the federal law, the time to comment on the Navy's proposal for a cleanup remedy is at this meeting and during this comment period for this document, according to the law. So now state law has sort of a parallel law. The California Department of Toxic Substances Control, known as DTSC, they're the lead agency, and they're represented by Mehdi Sunga here tonight, and Nathan, who's a public participation specialist with that agency, and they follow the California Health and Safety Code. And part of what that requires is the preparation of a remedial action plan for this site. So when you look at our titles, and I know that they look very cumbersome, and they are, and they look overly long in the title, and they are, they're a hybrid document here because it says proposed plan, which is the Navy's or the Federal's or Superfund Law's title for the document, and the draft remedial action plan, which is the state of California's title for the document. So the document has to meet the requirements of both federal laws and guidelines and state laws and guidelines. Okay, next slide. So a little bit about Superfund. It was enacted in 1980. It requires cleanup of past waste sites, and it provides an orderly process of documents, which, as you've seen, those of you who have gone to meetings for quite a while have seen, it takes quite a long time to go through the process. And it includes requirements for public outreach. But in the Superfund Law, it focuses at the proposed plan stage. It says you've got to have one of these things, a proposed plan, which in the state of California is also a draft remedial action plan. You have to have one of these. You have to have a 30-day comment period. You have to advertise in the newspaper that you're having a 30-day comment period. And then you have to have a public meeting. And during the public meeting and during the comment period, you have to allow for public comment specifically on this site. And so that's why this is a really, has a focused agenda tonight, because we've got to talk about the Site 24, both the groundwater and radioisotopes that we have proposals on. Okay, next slide. All right, so it's a long process, as I indicated, and we're right here. So if you start here with the site discovery and you go all the way to here when everything's done, we're right about here, more than halfway through. And the idea of the proposed plan, if you've had a chance to read it, and if not, that's okay, you'll learn about it tonight. This is the Navy's proposal about how to clean up this site. We've done the investigation, we've got all this sampling done, we've got data gathered, and now we've generated a proposal. And what we've had to do is rate that proposal against different proposals in different documents. And you'll see that at the back of the proposed plan, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, about why the Navy thinks our proposal is the strongest way the best choice for environmental cleanup on this particular site. And that's what we have today. Now the next document in the process is the record of decision, and that's where it's no longer a proposal, it's a final decision on how to clean it up. But to get from here, where we're at tonight, to there, we need some public comment on this site, and we need the state to weigh in on this site. It's called state acceptance. They need to weigh in on the site, and then we form a consensus with our state regulators as to the final cleanup action. And then we go out and do a design, and then we clean it up. Okay, so on the California Environmental Quality Act side, the CEQA side, I'm going to turn this over to Nathan because he's here to talk about that. Nathan?
Thank you.
Well,
Okay. California Environmental Quality Act is basically the premier environmental impact evaluation law that the state government uses to evaluate all decisions, discretionary decisions that we might make. So a draft remedial action plan is a decision, and we have to evaluate the impacts of that decision before we make it. Does that make any sense to anybody? Okay. We're not the only state agency that does that. The Water Board does it, local governments do it, city and county of San Francisco, any county government, any city government will have to do CEQA for planning decisions, for instance, buildings, that kind of thing, building developments. Next slide. So here is a discretionary decision for Site 24, and as I said, we have to evaluate it. We've looked at the Site 24 documents, and we believe that there are not significant negative impacts from the proposed plan or the draft. That's our draft negative declaration. That's what we call it. Next slide. And you can comment on this as well as anything else, but the comments on this need to go to us directly rather than to the Navy. If you send it to the Navy, they'll send it to us. So you might as well send it to us. It's easier. We're the ones looking at this aspect of it. Is there any questions about CEQA? Yes.
Can we talk to the regulator about it, send our comments, and talk to the regulator on the phone about it?
Yeah, you can talk to the regulator about CEQA, sure.
Okay, so this regulator from DTSC would be Remedial Sangha.
Yes, and her information is there, her email is there.
I don't see a phone number there.
The phone number is in the proposed plan,
It is.
so you have that.
And so the process would be to email her and ask for a time to talk to her on the phone, or can we just dial direct?
Well, why don't you talk to her, and Minnie can speak to that if she wants to.
For public questions can go to me directly, and my supervisor needs to weigh in on my responses to it. But for media, we have to go through our press officer.
Yeah, if you're media, that's special. Public information officer, that's a different staff person.
I live in San Francisco. Can I call as a citizen?
Well, again, if you're calling as media, that's different.
Well, can
So
I
I
call
don't
as a
wanna get
city?
involved in that.
Can I call as a citizen?
If you call as a citizen, I suppose we have to talk to you. I don't know, Carol. But the point is,
You have to talk to me.
media and citizens, slightly different. And we do have people that you can talk to who are from the media. who deal
Well,
with
I
it.
am from the media, but I live in the Marina District of San Francisco, so I am a citizen too.
Well, if you're...
I wear two hats, which
Well,
is...
the point is, you're media, so I can give you afterwards the name of the person you can contact who has this site for us. And that person you can talk to, no problem. Okay?
But would I have a problem talking to Medi as a citizen, which I want to do?
First, you talk to the press person. Then, it can be arranged. That's how we do it. Same as the Navy.
Okay, let's move forward.
Yes, we will. Next slide. Back to Regional Water Quality Control Board. You
Right.
Introduce her?
Sure. Thank you, Nathan. Okay, so Miriam Zek will talk a little bit about the Water Board's perspective on the proposed plan here today for Site 24. Miriam.
Yes, hi. So my name is Miriam Zek. I'm an engineer for the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. And as Keith said, I'm here to talk about Site 24, which is the dry cleaner site, and a site that the Water Board is very interested in. So this is our perspective. The Water Board is always concerned with public health, safety, and the environment, but we focus on the water quality issues at Site 24. Specifically here, protection of ecological receptors and aquatic organisms along the shoreline. So at Site 24, Danielle will talk to you about this a little bit later, but the solvents from past dry cleaning operations seeped into the ground and contaminated shallow groundwater. And we know that groundwater is not used for drinking, it's not used for irrigation or anything else, but it does flow towards the bay, and so it discharges to the bay, and which means that contaminated groundwater could pose a risk to aquatic life that lives there, that lives in the bay. Next slide, please. So what's our position? We believe that the Navy's proposed remedy is protective of the bay, including aquatic organisms that live along the shoreline. We have two reasons for this. First, the Navy has conducted an ecological risk assessment for aquatic receptors which live in the bay and could potentially be exposed to groundwater. And the findings from the study show that the contaminants are actually too far from the bay to pose a significant risk to invertebrates or to fish that live in the bay. But the second reason is that the Navy has been conducting some cleanup, and so the residual contamination is diminishing. It's really going down. In addition, what I want to tell you is that as part of the remedy, the Navy is proposing to remove soil beneath and adjacent to Building 99. I'm not sure if you guys know where that is, but it's on the map. You will see it later. Where soil contamination is still an ongoing source of PC and TC to groundwater, and also will create soil vapor. And so the Navy will conduct on-site groundwater treatment at locations where residual contamination remains. For this reason, we concur with DTSE that the Navy's proposed remedy is protective of the health of future site or building occupants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, we're holding questions to the end for the presentation because there's periods on the agenda for that. Okay?